start in, we're going to read one of the passages from last week, John chapter 2. John chapter 2, verse 13. We'll read this one real quick and then jump into where we were, where we left off with the temple. John chapter 2, starting in verse 13. And the Jews' Passover was at hand, and Jesus went into Jerusalem and found in the temple those who sold oxen, sheep, and doves, and the changers of money sitting. And when he had made a scourge of small cords, he drove them out of the temple, and the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money, and overthrew the tables. And he said unto them that sold doves, take these things hence, make not my Father's house, a house of merchant. And his disciples remembered that it was written, the zeal of my house hath eaten me up. Then answered the Jews and said unto him, what sign showest thou us unto us, seeing thou hast done these things? And Jesus answered and said unto them, destroy this temple, and in 3 days will I raise it up. Then said the Jews, 46 years was this temple in building, and wilt thou rear it up in 3 days? But he spake of the temple of his body. So Jesus threw everybody out. And like I said last time, this has always been why did he do this? But as I got into my daily reading, things were just, certain things popped up, and it was like, this is kind of neat. So that's what I'm going through. Exodus chapter 40, we'll continue with there. Exodus 40, verse 1. We know that they've got the tabernacle of the congregation built, and they had, Moses was up on the mountain too long, and or they thought, and they had Aaron built the golden calf, and then when Moses came down, God said, take me out from among these people. And he took the congregation of the tabernacle of the congregation out, and they set it outside the camp. And we read where Moses went out there to talk with God face to face. But in chapter 40 here, in verse 1, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, on the first day of the first month shalt thou set up the tabernacle of the tent of the congregation, and shall put therein the ark of the testimony, and cover the ark with a veil. So now they're fixing to put the ark of the covenant, the ark inside the veil. And I thought, as I was thinking on this week, was as they were making it, they had to make this thing. People made the ark. So everybody that was involved knew what it looked like. But what's wild is, we'll read it here. We better keep going. I'm jumping ahead. But I think it's pretty neat when they moved it in. Okay, we'll go Exodus 40 and verse 33. Here in verse 43, and he raised up the court round about the tabernacle and the altar, and set the hangings of the court gate. So Moses finished the work. Okay, they've got the tabernacle. Everything is done. We're ready to use it. Then a cloud covered the tent of the congregation, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle, and Moses was not able to enter into the tent of the congregation, because the cloud abode there, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And when the cloud was taken up over the tabernacle, the children of Israel went went onward in their journey, but when the cloud was not taken up, then they journeyed not until the day it was taken up. And you see right here, when they were done, that's when God came into the tabernacle. The Ark of the Covenant became His seat. And that's where He became, and that's when nobody else from then on could look upon it, because as we go through this, and we'll get into another place, it actually says that this is where God sits in His feet. This is His footstool. So I think it's kind of neat that Moses, when Moses was done, God took over. And that heavy veil, that's when it was the Holy of Holies. No one went into that place after that fact. So I thought that was kind of neat. God took it over. And you kind of put that with Jesus running everybody out of the temple, kind of goes together. But then you go to 2 Samuel chapter 7. Second Samuel chapter 7 and verse 1. 2 Samuel chapter 7 and verse 1. And it came to pass, when the king sat in his house, and the Lord had given him rest around about from all his enemies, and the king said unto Nathan the prophet, See how I dwell in a house of cedar, but the ark of God dwelleth within curtains. And this is David speaking. And then Nathan said unto the king, Go do all that is in thy heart, for the Lord is with thee. And I thought that's pretty neat. I mean, he's looking around and said, I'm living in a house of cedar. And God is dwelling in a house, in a tent. And Nathan said, Go do whatever you want. God's with you. And God was with David. But going on in verse 4, And it came to pass that night that the word of the Lord came unto Nathan, saying, Go, tell my servant David, Thus saith the Lord, shalt thou build me an house for me to dwell in? And you think about, it's kind of like, it's like a sarcastic question. You're going to build me a house to dwell in? I built the world. And you're going to build me a house to dwell in on the earth that I built? But we'll go on. I thought that was kind of neat. Whereas I have not dwelt in any house since the time that I brought up the children of Israel out of Egypt. Even to this day but I have walked in a tent, in a tabernacle, in all the places wherein I have walked, with all the children of Israel spake I a word with any of the tribe of Israel, whom I commanded to feed my people Israel, saying, Why build ye me an house of cedar? Now therefore so shalt thou say unto my servant David, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I took thee from the sheep court and from following sheep to be ruler over my people. We're going to stop real quick right there and go back. God says, the whole time that I brought you out, I've never asked to be put in a house of cedar. I've traveled through all of Israel. I've never asked anybody to build me something or place my name or anything anywhere. I've just traveled and went and fed the people. And that's what I'm here. But then he said unto David, then he starts talking to David here, I have brought thee out of, and we continue in verse 9, where he brought him out of. And I was with thee whithersoever thou wouldest, and have cut off all thy enemies out of thy sight, and have made thee a great name, like unto the name of the great men that are in the earth. Moreover, I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and will plant them, that they may dwell in a place of their own, and move no more. Neither shall the children of wickedness afflict them any more, as before time, and as since the time that I commanded judges to be over the people of Israel, and to have caused thee to rest from all thine enemies. Also the Lord telleth thee that he will make thee an house. Then thy days will be filled, and thou shalt sleep with thy father. I will set up thy seed after thee, which shall proceed out of thy bowels, and I will establish his kingdom, and he shall build an house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever, and I will be his father, and he shall be my son. If he commit iniquity, I will chasten him with a rod of men, and with the stripes of children of the men. But my mercy shall not depart from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I put before thee. In thine house and thy kingdom shall I establish forever before thee. Thy throne will I establish forever. According to all these words and according to all these visions, so did Nathan speak unto David. So David is wanting to build a house of God and not this tent. And God said, I've dwelt in tents. Doesn't bother me. And you're going to build me a house. And I set you up. And that's what God was telling David. I brought you from one of the lowest, from low, you were just a sheep herder. And I set you to be king over my children and over my people. I've established you. And you're not going to do it. And that's what's neat about this as we continue. David doesn't know why. He doesn't know why he can't build the temple. But he'll know in the future. But I didn't realize a lot of things hadn't happened at this point in time in his life. But God says, your son will. The son that comes out of your bowels. And that son wasn't even born yet. I thought that was really neat. So we're going to go to 1 Colossians. I think I say that right. 1 Colossians 28. We're jumping way forward in time here. First Colossians 28. This is the books of all the kings here, chapter 28, starting in verse 1. Chronicles. Thank you. I get Chronicles and clear those backwards. I said, that ain't right. Chapter 28, starting in verse 1 here. And David assembled all the princes of Israel and the princes of the tribes and the captains over the companies that ministered to the king by the course, and the captains over the thousands, captains over the hundreds, and the stewards over all the substance provinces of the king and of his sons, and the officers of the mighty men, and with all the violent men unto Jerusalem. And David the king stood upon his feet and said, "Hear me, my brethren and my people. For as for me, I had in my heart to build a house of rest for the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and for the footstool of our God, and had made ready for the building. But God said unto me, Thou shalt not build an house for my name, because thou hast been a man of war, and hast shed blood. Howbeit the Lord God of Israel chose me before all the house of my fathers to be king over Israel forever. And for me, he hath chosen Judah to be ruler over the house of Judah and the house of my father, and among the sons of my father he liked me to make me king over Israel and all my sons. For the Lord hath chosen me given me many sons, and he had chosen Solomon my son to sit upon the throne of the kingdom of the Lord over Israel. And he said unto me, Solomon thy son shall build my house and my courts, for I have chosen him to be my son, and I will be his king. You realize this is the same, in some of this, it's the same thing that Nathan told him. But I think what is kind of neat is, in verse 2, it says David stood on his feet. If you remember, at this point in time in his life, David he's cold. That's when they found this young virgin that he was married and kept his body heat while he laid. He wasn't able to get around much. He was in bad health at this time. And one of his other sons was trying to set up to be king. And that's when they said no. That's when Samuel's mom came to him and said, "Hey, you need to set him up king. You said he was going to be king." And what's wild is, and when Nathan told David he wasn't going to build the house, Samuel wasn't even born, or Solomon wasn't even born. He hadn't even killed that guy. His name left me. But, he hadn't shed innocent blood at that point in time. But God knew the future and knew what but David had in his heart that he wanted to build him a house, and how that God had chosen David to be king and had chosen Solomon to be king after him. And then the same thing, it's kind of neat that, all the same words were coming from David that Nathan told him. And to me that was like history, a prophecy being fulfilled in the future right here. So then as Solomon is now is king, we go to 1 Kings 8. I tell you what, you get into this and you gotta go back in the Chronicles and the Kings, and you got the different the same story but different way it's put together. It's kind of neat. 1 Kings 8. I'm going to have to. It's almost time to quit again. In verse 1. Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes of the chiefs of the fathers and the children of Israel unto King Solomon in Jerusalem, that they might bring up the ark of the covenant unto the Lord out of the city of David, which was in Zion. And all the men of Israel assembled themselves to the King Solomon at the feast in the first in the month Ithram, which is the 7th month, and all the elders of Israel came, and the princes took up the ark, and they brought up the ark of the Lord, and the tabernacle, and the congregation, and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle. Even those did the priests and the Levites bring up, and King Solomon and all the congregation of Israel that were assembled unto him were with him before the ark, sacrificed sheep and oxen that could not be told nor numbered for multitude. And the priests brought in the ark of the covenant of the Lord unto the place, unto the oracle of the house, to the most holy place, even under the wings of the cherubims. For the cherubims spread forth their 2 wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubims covered the ark and the staves thereof above. And they drew out the staves, that the ends of the staves were seen out of the holy place before the oracle, and they were not seen without. And there they are unto this day. And there was nothing in the ark save the 2 tablets of stone which Moses put there in Hebron when the Lord made a covenant with the children of Israel, and when they came out of the land of Egypt. And it came to pass, when the priests were come out of the holy place, that the cloud filled the house of the Lord, so that the priests could not stand in the midst because of the cloud, and the glory of the Lord filled the house of the Lord. Here, same thing happened. When that ark went in, God came in. And I tell you, there's some things I never seen through some of this. You see how many, they had sacrifices of oxen. They couldn't even number them. There were so many sheep and oxen that were sacrificed at that time. And when they got that ark in, they pulled those staves out. The poles that they carried that ark around, they pulled them out because God was there. And He named Jerusalem as His city. And He named the house of the Lord, His name was there. He came to dwell in Jerusalem. He used to travel, but now He's there. And everybody came in, and even you read in Revelation, when God sets up His throne in Jerusalem, the whole world is going to come to there to worship. And He didn't choose anywhere but there. And there's just so much in this. And how King Solomon, but I want to wrap this up, because as I was talking about this, the temple is where God dwells, and Jesus ran them out. And now we'll go to 1 Corinthians chapter 3. And as I was going through this kept coming to mind for me. 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 16. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? If any man dwelleth in the temple of God, him shall God destroy, for the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are. So us as saved people, we are the temple of God. God dwells in us. Just like He came and dwelt on the Ark of the Covenant, and that covenant was with Israel, that He would take care of them as long as they followed Him. And that's just like He said here, if any man dwelleth in the temple of God, him shall God destroy. Well, that's not what I was thinking. But I was thinking, as Nathan told David, if Solomon will follow after me and do my commandments, I will take care of him. And if he don't, I will chastise him. And God, that's what God does to us. And I got thinking that we, as an individual that are saved, God, when God saved us, God came into us, and we are part of Him. God dwells in us. And then I think about, I still got this dead man that I have to drag around that gives me a lot of trouble. It bothers me a lot. In this world, the world gets in the way. But the temple, we are God's temple. And we need to really watch out where we go and what we do. And, this, to me, this was kind of a neat study. But, and then being able to see that we are the temple too. And I think that last little bit, it says in verse 16, "For the temple of God is holy." And I got to really stop and let these last 4 words, I have to really work to say them correctly. Because I want to say, "Which are ye?" I want to ask a question, but that's not what it says. It says, "Which temple ye are." That says we are a temple. And we're a holy temple. And I have to watch that. That is, So, but this has been a neat study because now I know why Jesus cleaned up the temple. His name was there. That was His reputation. They had turned it into a house of thieves, and God says, no. It's not a house of thieves. It's a house of worship. It's a house of prayer. And we need to be the same way. But it's been neat. It's been neat. And I learned this over time. That story and the things that, as I read through, as He built as the tabernacle was built, and as the temple was built, and God came into it, was like, wow. And He put His name on it. It was important because God puts His name there. So I hope this has been encouragement to you. It has been to me. I've enjoyed studying. And I tell you what, getting into God's Word and letting Him show you things it's really nice. It's really neat. So we'll end with a word of prayer.